Welcome to the Voices of Young People podcast, brought to you by Springtide Research Institute. In each episode, we hear directly from young people as they respond to our research and share about the issues impacting their lives. As sociologists and researchers, we see a new story unfolding for young people, one that moves beyond traditional institutional boundaries and requires careful attention to the inner and outer lives of emerging generations. At the intersection of being and becoming, it's the Voices of Young People.
Hello, I'm Marta Abawaji, the head of community engagement at Springtide, and this is episode 9 in our current season, season 5, which coincides with our flagship report, The State of Religion and Young People 2021. This year's report focuses on navigating uncertainty. And you can get a free digital download of the report at our website, springtideresearch.org, as well as a super reduced cost in the print version that you can find on Amazon or our website as well. We have even different bundle options if you wanted to read this report and the findings and insights in a group context. You can find different bundles to get multiple copies, as well as a discussion guide that you can use for individual or group use. In this episode, we hear from another one of our Springtide ambassadors. This one is with Christian. He was a senior at Salle University at the time of recording, and he grew up in Philadelphia in this Puerto Rican-Italian Catholic family, but he says presently he's more focused on seeing religion not as one-sided. He utilizes daily meditation, solitude, conversations on faith, and even literature. He really emphasizes that with different social justice themes to feel in touch with God and nature and humanity as a whole. So here's Christian's episode.
Hi, my name is Christian Jesus Camacho. I am 22 years old. I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm in my senior year. I'm graduating in 1 month from Salle University with a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science. I am a Catholic born and raised, and I am Puerto Rican and Italian, and I am also the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Student Government Association at Salle University. I am connected to Catholicism really just through my family. My grandmother is very religious. I kind of live the Catholic religion through her. I grew up as an altar boy. I made all the way up to my confirmation, which was, great initially growing up. But there was a time where, being an altar boy and following really the religion of Catholicism kind of gave me the responsibility to kind of, make sure the altar was set up, make sure the priest had everything he needed, so on and so forth. So there was a time where I did feel I was a part of a community. But as I guess I could say real life issues popped up, family issues, so on and so forth, I was disconnected from my church. And I kind of, at the moment, am not connected so much to Catholicism. I do go to a Catholic institution. However, I say that I go to a Catholic institution. The founder of the school that I go to is Catholic, and I do live through the values of the Catholic founder. But I don't go to church much. I kind of have separated myself from religious institutions aside from my university. Initially, being disconnected from the particular faith community that I was a part of, it wasn't an active decision that I had made over time. As I mentioned, family issues had came in. I had to switch to a different church. Um, However, it's now I kind of look back on it, and now that I am graduating in a month, and I am, but my next step is within another Catholic institution. I do want to go back and kind of rekindle, like, speak with the people who was a part of this faith community that I was in. And it's kind of just, initially it's not an active decision that I had made at the time. I was so young. Um, but it's a part of me is kind of saying, it's been so long. It's probably been about 10 to 12 years now. They kind of it's like, how much can you talk to somebody, you know, they knew me when I was a child. Now I'm 22 years old. I'm graduating college. I'm going to another state to educate. It's like they probably don't even know, where I am. I mean, I'm not part of the same neighborhood anymore. It's such a distant memory, but it is a memory that I will remember. As I go into this new faith community, I will hold the feelings that I had with my previous faith community. Yeah. Feeling there was actually a good time that I did have this feeling of abundance of faith um continuously as I was attending a religious institution. It really came down to the simplicity of being in solitude with myself. Living within the city, there's sounds everywhere. You pretty much become numb to it. You learn to block out the sounds with music and so on and so forth. But it wasn't until I went to my university to where I was offered the ability to kind of be in solitude for a time outside of the city, such as like different like mission trips, different like getaways, so on and so forth. And there was a time where I was in complete solitude, surrounded by other classmates of mine. And I felt just this abundance of faith that to me it was missing for so long. I keep going back to like how I was when I was 10, 11, and 12, because that was a time where felt as if I was doing something for my community, my religious community. And it was so gone for so long. And the time that I did feel this great abundance of faith within me, this deep connection with my religion and with my surroundings and with nature, um, just having that one connection, it kind of pushed me into saying, "Hey, maybe we can make this an everyday thing. Maybe we can make this, my career." Which has pushed me to, when I graduate, to push me into my next occupation, into teaching. So that's definitely a time where I had felt an abundance of faith. So a certain time that I did feel that I was empty within my thoughts of Catholicism and my presence of Catholicism was definitely the news coming around the LGBTQ community. Um, it was something that to me I kind of felt very just lost. Being at the time that Pope Benedict had resigned, and the time that Pope Francis had came to be appointed Pope. It was a time of solidarity. First South American Pope. My family is Hispanic. We have a Hispanic Pope. It was amazing. This is amazing news to hear. And then slowly but surely, the news about the LGBTQ community and the Catholic Church start coming to fruition. Um, there was a Supreme Court case that legalized same-sex marriage, and there was a point of solidarity within America, but still there were points where I still looked to the Catholic Church and questioned why they had these aspects on the LGBTQ community. And coming from a very conservative family, it was hard to kind of still follow these values of Catholicism. And in the recent years, they have kind of had their say, more updated say on same-sex unions. And it's very hard to have those conversations with family members that I've trusted to kind of guide my hand with Catholicism. So that can definitely be a time where I had felt that I was empty and my thoughts on Catholicism were very bland.
Just a quick break to give a shout out. Springtide is able to offer this podcast because of donors who make our research and actionable insights possible. Goldie, a youth minister, left us this review after reading our recent publication, Work Life, stating, "Springtide is always spot on in their research. I work with youth and young adults, and I've benefited greatly from all their books. Work Life is another must-have." You can see more of our current findings on our website, springtideresearch.org, where you can also make your own tax-deductible donation with a variety of giving options. Now, back to the episode.
So one thing that I have noticed that has definitely made me feel very sacred to myself, being in the presence of God, is definitely through meditation. I mentioned earlier about being in solitude, and living within a city. It's close to impossible to find solitude within nature. Um, but I can definitely say that be with meditating and being quiet and finding like a comfortable position to be within myself, it has helped me to be more in touch with God, with nature, and just really feeling like a human being. I feel like that kind of sounds weird for people to hear, but I've noticed a new thing that I have been going through, which is disassociation. Um, going through my last semester of college and so on and so forth, I kind of had that separation between like, being a 22-year-old male or, being a robot who's constantly typing essays all day long. Um, and as far as like some activities that I do meditate every day. I'm trying to make it twice a day now. And I go for walks without any type of music playing. I also have conversations with a buddy of mine who is a youth minister at his church. Even though the practice that he has at his church is different from mine, I believe he's Pentecostal. There are a lot of similarities that overlap with each other, and I kind of see it as like I help water him, he helps water me. So we have a good friendship like that, and through the history that we had with each other was pretty. It's pretty nice to have like that connection with somebody through the sacredness, and spirituality. One specific practice that I say kind of helps me feel like myself is through literature. I've noticed throughout time that I have this like connection towards books. I have a whole library in my room right now. I'm actually looking at it. It's very discombobulated because I just tend to buy books that I don't necessarily read in the moment, but it's the apprehension of the book that kind of gives me the motivation to read. Um, but definitely, I've noticed throughout time, I'm very contentious and very present towards books about I don't even know if I want to say social justice, but one thing I have noticed is the autobiography of Malcolm X. That book in particular, um, I take my time reading the book. I highlight different parts about it, and it's a book that at first I was a bit cautious to read personally, just because I didn't know much about Malcolm X. I didn't learn anything about him in school, which is as time had went on, I learned that's the issue, and that's why I need to read this book. But it was little by little as I was reading the book that it kind of helped me feel like this is what I was supposed to do. This is what I was kind of born to do. Kind of sounds a bit crazy to say, but even in the line of work that I do, um, becoming an educator, studying political science, definitely learning about the unknown, I guess, unknown civic heroes of our generation is something that has helped me feel very rooted in the world and within myself. And as far as like considering it a religious and or a spiritual practice, I would say when I think of religion, when I think of church, I think of reading, or I think of reading the Bible or so on and so forth. And it's that term of education. So initially, I'm educating myself about these people I never knew about. I'm educating myself about Malcolm X. In a way, I can see it as more of a spiritual practice, an internal spiritual practice. So some spaces that I definitely do center myself out. Um, I would say it's really, I want to say within nature. So sitting outside or kind of like feeling grass, some part of my body, whether that's on my feet, on my hands, so on and so forth. Um, but it's definitely within being outside, not being within a home, within a building, or so on and so forth. I have noticed that actually the other day I was meditating outside and I start thinking about the beaches in Puerto Rico. And there was a moment of sadness because Puerto Rico has went through two hurricanes, and I know the beaches aren't the same, and the beaches near my home are you know horrifying. It's a bad moment. However, it was so weird because at the moment of meditating, it was at nighttime, like a scent of the ocean passed by my nose, and I kind of got goosebumps from it. And then I looked to my side and I seen that my neighbor's dryer was on. So I said, okay, maybe it could be their dryer. I said, but I'm gonna keep to myself that that was a scent of the ocean. So but definitely I would say within nature, being around fresh air, that's definitely an area where I can center myself. I would say something that I have borrowed from other, I guess, another religion. Um, I kind of went out of my way. Recently, I purchased a Quran, and I kind of I have it in my presence, not not as like a piece to show people that I represent multiple religions, but more so as a piece to kind of push me to see, that there is something more than my own religion, something more that is out there. And initially it's, I never read the Bible. I grew up hearing different verses about the Bible. I kind of kicked myself that I never learned how to read it, or I'm sorry, I never read it. However, I am also grateful at this time because I have the ability to read the Quran and read the Bible at a time when I'm not in school, but of course at a time where I can kind of expand my mind and not see religion one-sided as some people in my family have grown up to be. There are times when I would go to my grandmother, who she's a conservative thinker in terms of, Catholicism. However, there are times where I go up to her to speak about things within, I say, Judaism. And it's not the fact that she would say a comment against Judaism, but she would kind of say a comment and say, oh well, that's historically wrong, or, and she wouldn't say it in a way of I guess it would just be more so like she didn't understand, she didn't know that about Judaism. And I'm grateful that I have the ability to know how something like that could be tied within Judaism and Catholicism. Considering the massive presence of activism that we've had in a year, it's been a wow, it's about a year now. I'm coming up on a year. And seeing how in America the current climate is being more poised towards having this secular culture and having this um kind of, if you're one religion, you're kind of seen as like there's this continuous labeling and separation amongst religions and cultures and so on and so forth. One thing that I am kind of curious about is how we are to look not only at governmental leaders but also religious leaders in addressing some of these issues, because you know I kind of look back. I went to Europe about 2 years ago. I got to see the migrant issue like firsthand, and to me, to hear Pope Francis speak about the migrant issue, And, it kind of faded away as COVID came to fruition. My question now is, okay, how are we going to not only, you know, not forget about COVID, but understand how understand how we adapted to COVID? And now, how are we going to go back on the promises that we had made once as a religious institution? So that's one thing that I'm curious about. I'd say faith over time, there was a time where I was disassociated from my faith, just from, typical high school kind of a moment. My There was my ninth and 10th grade. Every single day I went to sleep, I prayed, and it was a time where I felt so in touch with my religion and my faith. However, as time progressed, I kind of became more mature and I lost that kind of touch. Um, Now that I am 22 and I look back on that time where I was praying every night and I try to incorporate it now in my everyday life, but I'm just so exhausted by the time I do go to bed. That being said, I can say that my faith changed over time in terms of how I look at faith as being the center of my being. So when I was younger, I looked at faith as, it was everything I had to be. I would eat, drink, and sleep faith. That's what I was accustomed to. That was the house that I was raised in. However, now I understand that faith is present in every simple thing that I do, but it doesn't have to be justified. Before I was justifying my faith and saying, "Oh, I'm doing this because of this." Now it's like this Zoom meeting to me, I see it's a point of faith because I'm speaking about faith. Drinking water, just hydrating myself, or making my bed in the morning, or calling my grandmother. It's these things that I just to me, it doesn't have to be about faith. It's probably has nothing to do with faith whatsoever. But I've learned over time that for my own mental health and for my own, I guess, continuity of life has been through living a life of faith without having to justify it. The only person that I'm looking to justify at this moment is myself through faith.
Visit springtideresearch.org to hear more voices of young people and to download our latest report, The State of Religion in Young People 2021, Navigating Uncertainty. Thanks to a very generous donation, the digital version of this report is free to download. Springtide Research Institute is supported by donors who believe in the critical research and insight-generating work we do on behalf of young people. Make your own tax-deductible donation with a variety of giving options on our website today. Today's show was produced by Marta Abuaji and TJ Birnbaum, with original music by high school student Christian Unthank. Special thanks to the 10 guests featured on Season 5 and to all the young people whose voices and perspectives make our research possible. Follow us on social media at We Are Springtide and interact with a variety of resources connected to the 2021 report with the hashtag Religion and Young People 2021. Thanks for listening.